On March 19, 1996, Nelson Mandela, one of the most celebrated world leaders, divorced his wife Winnie Mandela, ending their 38 years marriage. It was reported that the divorce was as a result of Winnie Mandela's infidelity with Dali Mpofu. At the time, the news of their divorce shocked the world and made headlines because they were considered the perfect couple. Nelson Mandela eventually remarried. He married the widow of Samora Machel, the former president of Mozambique, another marriage that also made headlines. In this video, we shall be focusing on African presidential marriages that were turbulent and scandalous. On the surface, Africa's leaders live lives of perfection, grand palaces, dazzling ceremonies, and smiles polished for the world to see. But behind the gilded doors, another story unfolds. Marriages are tested by ambition, shattered by betrayal, and haunted by secrets that could topple reputations as easily as governments. Love, once sacred, often crumbles under the relentless weight of political pressure and public scrutiny. In this video, we lift the veil on the untold stories of Africa's presidential marriages that ended in scandal, where desire, deception, and power collide in ways the world was never meant to witness. 1. Robert Mugabe's marriages, Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe's marital scandal involving Grace Marufu remains one of the most talked about episodes in African political history, a dramatic blend of forbidden romance, power, betrayal, and political ambition. The scandal began quietly in the late 1980s, long before the public had any idea that the Zimbabwean president was entangled in a deeply personal and politically explosive affair. At the time, Mugabe was married to Sally Hifron Mugabe, the Ghanaian-born First Lady, who was admired nationally for her humility, intelligence, and compassion. Sally had been Mugabe's pillar of strength since the liberation struggle. However, by the mid-1980s, she was seriously ill with kidney failure, and her health worsened each year. During this vulnerable period, Mugabe secretly began a relationship with Grace Marufu, his young secretary at State House. Grace was 40 years younger than Sally, already married to an Air Force officer and known for her beauty, confidence, and ambition. Their affair was kept hidden for years, but inside political circles, whispers began to spread. Grace later admitted that Mugabe proposed love to her at a time when she felt emotionally neglected in her own marriage. The relationship quickly intensified. By 1988, Grace had given birth to their first child, Bona, even though both she and Mugabe were still legally married to other partners. This revelation shocked many Zimbabweans once it became public, because Mugabe had always presented himself as morally disciplined and deeply loyal to Sally. When Sally died in 1992, Mugabe publicly grieved, but behind the scenes, he had already built a secret family with Grace. In 1996, he married Grace in an extravagant televised ceremony that was widely criticized as insensitive, poorly timed, and tainted by years of infidelity. Many Zimbabweans felt the marriage dishonored Sally's legacy and signaled a shift in Mugabe's moral compass. Grace's reputation further fueled the scandal. She was known for her lavish shopping trips, expensive tastes, and political influence. Critics accused her of using Mugabe's affection to rise to power, eventually becoming a dominant figure in ZANU-PF politics. For many, the relationship symbolized Mugabe's growing detachment from ordinary Zimbabweans and his increasing vulnerability to manipulation. The Mugabe-Grace affair remains one of the most dramatic personal scandals in African political history. A story of forbidden love, the corruption of power, and a leader whose private desires reshaped both his family and his country's politics. 2. Nelson Mandela's divorce from Winnie Mandela, South Africa. Nelson Mandela and Winnie Madikizela Mandela shared one of the most iconic yet ultimately tragic marriages in African political history. Their relationship began with extraordinary passion and hope, but ended in deep scandal, betrayal, and public controversy. The dissolution of their marriage became one of the most dramatic political and personal stories in South Africa. Mandela met Winnie in 1957, and the two married in 1958. At the time, Mandela was already a rising figure in the anti-apartheid struggle, while Winnie was a young social worker with fiery political energy. Their marriage was quickly strained by Mandela's increasing involvement in the struggle. In 1964, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, leaving Winnie to raise their 2 daughters alone. For the next 27 years, Winnie became the symbolic mother of the nation, visiting Mandela in prison and enduring constant harassment by the apartheid regime. Publicly, she was portrayed as fiercely loyal, but privately, the long separation was eroding their bond. During Mandela's imprisonment, rumors began to circulate about Winnie's extramarital relationships. By the late 1980s, as she gained political independence and influence, allegations intensified. The most damaging was her affair with Dali Mpofu, a young lawyer and ANC member. This relationship became a major scandal within the ANC and was deeply embarrassing to Mandela, who was still in prison when he learned about it. The affair shattered the perception of their marriage as unbreakable and created emotional distance long before Mandela's release. Compounding the personal betrayal were the political scandals surrounding Winnie, particularly the Mandela United Football Club, a group of bodyguards linked to kidnappings, violence, and the murder of 14-year-old activist Stompie Saipai. Although Mandela initially defended her publicly, these events strained their marriage even further. When Mandela was released in 1990, the emotional reunion the world expected did not reflect their real relationship. Years of separation, Winnie's political radicalism, and her personal scandals made it impossible for the couple to rebuild what they once had. By 1992, Mandela announced their separation, citing irreconcilable differences. Their divorce was finalized in 1996. The Mandela-Winnie marriage, once a symbol of resistance, transformed into a painful story of betrayal, political turmoil, and public scandal. While both remain towering figures in South African history, their union stands as a reminder of how even the greatest struggles for freedom can exact devastating personal costs. 3. Jacob Zuma's marital scandals. South Africa. Jacob Zuma's marital life has long been a magnet for scandal, blending politics, polygamy, romance, and controversy into one of Africa's most dramatic personal sagas. As a proud traditional Zulu polygamist, Zuma married several women, but his marriages often collided with public scrutiny. His union with Nompumelelo Mantuli Ntuli exploded into national headlines after she was accused, though never charged, of poisoning him, a claim that led to her being removed from the presidential residence and cast into public disgrace. Zuma's extramarital affairs were equally sensational. The most infamous involved Sonono Koza, daughter of a prominent soccer boss, resulting in a child born outside his marriages. This revelation outraged South Africans, not just for the infidelity, but for contradicting Zuma's own moral messaging. Other allegations emerged over the years, including accusations of coercive behavior and inappropriate relationships with young women. The 2005 rape allegation, of which Zuma was acquitted, further fractured public opinion and stained his reputation internationally. Beyond his official wives, Zuma's romantic entanglements and love children created a perception of chaotic personal life spilling into national leadership. To critics, his marriages symbolized excess, moral inconsistency, and entitlement. To supporters, they reflected cultural tradition. Either way, Zuma's marital scandals remain inseparable from his political legacy. 4. Blaise and Chantal Compaoré's marriage, Burkina Faso. Blaise and Chantal Compaoré married on 29 June 1985, reportedly just 5 months after their first meeting, a union widely viewed as politically arranged. Their union, which started as a strategic alliance, quickly revealed deep tensions rooted in differing backgrounds and worldviews. Chantal, of Ivorian French origin with aristocratic social ties, was accustomed to a lifestyle far removed from the austere, revolutionary ethos of Burkina Faso's leadership. Over time, rumors and testimonies painted a picture of a marriage that had little genuine solidarity. According to critics and insiders, the marriage became protocol, maintain more for power and image than for companionship. Allegations surfaced about extravagant spending, indulgence in luxury, and a lifestyle completely at odds with the poverty many Burkinabe endured. A sharp contrast that fueled public resentment. After the fall of Compaoré's regime in 2014, exile amplified the fissures in their union. Reports suggest Chantal struggled to adjust to life in Côte d'Ivoire, clinging to ambitions of power even as her husband reportedly withdrew from political ambitions. Accusations from within their own family claimed her fondness for nightlife, lavish spending, champagne, and cigars contributed to the collapse of the couple's domestic harmony, ultimately affecting Compaoré's hold on power. Furthermore, legal troubles followed them. Investigations abroad alleged that Chantal held large illicit accounts, possibly tied to misappropriation of public funds during Compaoré's presidency. The fallout tarnished not just their personal reputation, but reinforced a wider narrative of corruption, moral decay, and hypocrisy at the heart of the leadership. In short, what began as a politically convenient marriage devolved into a scandalous emblem of excess, betrayal, and moral compromise. A cautionary tale about the corrosive effects of power on personal relationships. 5. Mobutu Sese Seko's marriage, DRC. Mobutu Sese Seko, the longtime president of Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, is remembered as one of Africa's most flamboyant and controversial leaders. His personal life, particularly his marriages, was marked by extravagance, infidelity, and public scandal, mirroring the excesses of his political career. Mobutu was known to have multiple wives over the course of his life, though the precise number varies depending on sources, reflecting the complex and sometimes secretive nature of his domestic arrangements. His marriages were often intertwined with political strategy, designed to cement alliances, showcase wealth, or maintain an image of dominance. Mobutu's most prominent wife was Bobi Ladawa Mobutu, whom he married in the early 1970s. Bobi Ladawa was frequently in the public eye, accompanying Mobutu on official state visits and at ceremonial events. While their union projected an image of stability and respectability, it was widely understood that Mobutu's marital fidelity was limited. Reports from diplomats, journalists, and insiders suggest that Mobutu engaged in numerous extramarital affairs throughout his life. He was notorious for his liaisons with young women, often chosen for their beauty and social connections rather than emotional attachment. These relationships were not merely private indulgences. They became fodder for public speculation and gossip, casting a shadow over the official image of the presidential household. The scandalous aspects of Mobutu's marriages were compounded by the lavish lifestyle he imposed on his wives and mistresses. Palaces, luxury vehicles, designer clothing, and extravagant parties were commonplace, all funded by state resources. Bobi Ladawa and other women in Mobutu's orbit were expected to maintain appearances of elegance and grace, yet the juxtaposition of opulence and Mobutu's notorious infidelity created a climate of tension and resentment. Sources recount that domestic conflicts were often hidden from the public, but whispers of jealousy, rivalry, and personal humiliation circulated widely within Kinshasa's elite circles. Mobutu's infidelity was emblematic of a broader pattern in which power, wealth, and personal indulgence were inseparable. His marriages were less about emotional partnership and more about the projection of authority and influence. Each union, affair, or scandal reinforced the perception that Mobutu was above conventional moral constraints. Even after leaving power, and during the later years of his life, rumors persisted regarding the continued complexity of his domestic arrangements, reflecting the enduring fascination with his personal excesses. In conclusion, Mobutu Sese Seko's marital life was a reflection of both his personal character and the political culture he cultivated. His multiple marriages, combined with habitual infidelity, lavish spending, and the public attention these attracted, made his personal life one of the most scandalous among African leaders. The intertwining of love, power, and betrayal in Mobutu's relationships illustrates the human cost of absolute authority and the ways in which personal indiscretions can amplify the perception of political corruption. His marriages remain emblematic of the complex and often morally ambiguous lives of some of Africa's most powerful figures. 6. Paul Biya and Jean-Irene Biya's controversy. Cameroon. Paul Biya's first marriage to Jean-Irene Biya was one of the most discussed yet least understood chapters of Cameroon's political history. They married in 1960, long before Biya became president, and Jean-Irene was known for her elegance, discipline, and strong Catholic faith. As First Lady from 1982 to her death in 1992, she maintained a quiet but respected public presence, often seen as a stabilizing force around Biya. Her sudden death in 1992 created shock across Cameroon. The official explanation was that she died from an undisclosed illness after years of fragile health. However, the secrecy surrounding her final days fueled rumors and conspiracy theories, especially because her death occurred during one of Cameroon's most politically tense periods. Some opposition figures and critics speculated, without evidence, that Biya, her husband, may have had a hand in her death, claiming political or personal motives. These claims spread widely but were never substantiated by any credible investigation, medical report, or official inquiry. The rumors intensified when Biya married Chantal Pulcherie Vigoureau just 2 years later, in 1994. Many felt the marriage happened too quickly, feeding suspicions and public gossip. In reality, Jean-Irene's death remains officially attributed to natural causes, and all accusations against Paul Biya remain unproven political rumors, amplified by the climate of distrust surrounding his long rule. 7. Obiang Nguema Mbasogo's marriage. Equatorial Guinea. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, the long-ruling president of Equatorial Guinea, has seen his private life attract almost as much controversy as his political career. His marriage to Constancia Mangede Obiang, the country's longtime First Lady, has been overshadowed by decades of rumors, allegations, and scandals involving infidelity, manipulation, and abuse of power. Although Obiang presents a carefully controlled public image, stories from political insiders, exiled critics, and human rights reports paint a far darker picture. Over the years, Obiang has been accused of maintaining numerous extramarital affairs, often with women seeking protection, employment, or political favor. Critics claim that these relationships were sometimes facilitated by the immense power he holds in a state where the presidency controls everything from wealth distribution to personal security. Some opposition groups and former insiders have alleged that Obiang's affairs occasionally involved coercive dynamics, though these claims have never been officially proven in court. Still, the atmosphere of fear surrounding his regime has kept such accusations alive, especially among exiled activists who argue that relationships with the president could never be truly voluntary under an authoritarian system. Constancia Mange, meanwhile, has faced her own share of scrutiny. Her powerful influence in government, combined with accusations of using state resources to elevate her family, fueled claims that the Obiang household blended personal enrichment with political authority. Their marriage has long been described as a partnership built on power rather than affection, with both spouses wielding influence and navigating scandals to protect the regime. Overall, the Obiang marriage stands as a symbol of luxury, secrecy, and controversy, reflecting the broader climate of unchecked power that has defined Equatorial Guinea's political landscape.